pushed for and is run by the very corporate interests that these people are supposedly protesting against. Now, people really need to wake up and do some research and find out who the big banks really are and what kinds of social agendas they put all their money into. Rockefeller Foundation, a very good place to start. Also funding some of the groups you think are part of your movement. It's very dangerous. But global democracy is not the only form. There's also world federalism. One of the members was this guy, Cord Meyer, the CIA black ops commander, who was also a president of that organization. You also know people like Hillary Clinton and Walter Cronkite. There's a creepy speech where Hillary thanks Walter Cronkite for calling for global government. I want to play an example now of somebody at Occupy Vancouver who calls for world federalism and quotes George Soros and how great his platform is for global democracy. Do we have that
money
video?
And how is new money created?
Yes.
I'll pass on that one. That's too deep for me right now.
Okay. So, why are you here?
I'm here because of the movement that it's been coming a long time, but it suddenly clicked. I'm leaving the Occupy the Planet for the brotherhood and sisterhood of humankind. And want to broaden it out to just the banking thing. That's just part of the problem.
Okay. And what group are you with?
I'm with a group, well, this notice is about the World Federalists, which believes that we must move beyond the United Nations towards a world federation. This is what I'm saying, the brotherhood and sisterhood of humankind. Human sovereignty must supersede national sovereignty. George Soros said that, not me, the billionaire. He made that statement.
The banker.
The banker, yeah. He also wrote the article in the Atlantic Monthly about the capitalist threat.
So George Soros will lead us to global brotherhood, and it's all for your own good. A system beyond the United Nations, which is just, at best, a shoddy illusion. All very scary. Obviously, those kinds of people don't represent the movement as a whole, but those people with that agenda seek to sweep everyone into these global solutions, and that's why it's so dangerous. The Vatican has joined in the call for a global central bank on the heels of the EU President Herman Van Rompuy calling for a single treasury to oversee the spending and taxation in the European Union. Now, the Vatican wants a global public authority. Is this starting to sound familiar? Now, the Vatican released an 18-page document entitled Towards Reforming the International Financial and Monetary Systems in the Context of a Global Public Authority. And the Vatican's Justice and Peace Department commented that, quote, this should be music to the ears of the Occupy Wall Street demonstrators and similar movements around the world who protested against the economic downturn. That quote was in CNBC. Another Reuters quote says, this should please the Occupy Wall Street demonstrators. You can see where that's a talking point. Reuters, however, has edited this article and updated it. Occupy Wall Street protesters this month sparked similar anti-capitalist movements around the world. So they're trying to draw in this anger and sentiment, righteous as it may be, from the Occupy movement into a global solution. That's what's dangerous here. Not that the Vatican in particular will have their document come to fruition, or the world federalists who openly call for world global taxation system. Not that their solution in particular will be adopted, or any one solution, but that they're moving in that direction, trying to sell the public. That is why I am warning you here today. Now, in other news, there's all kinds of vaccine stuff going on, not the least of which is a new push for the anthrax vaccine, which they say they want to test on children. Headline here, Obama wants to test anthrax vaccine on kids. And the Washington Post says it's hard to believe that it's something that makes a great deal of sense, said Joel Frater, a pediatrician and bioethicist at Northern University's Feinberg School of Medicine. It would be difficult to justify testing it on kids simply on the hypothetical possibility that there might be an attack, an anthrax attack, which after 9/11 admittedly came from within the military. They tried to blame a patsy, but clearly the government is the only one who could release such an attack credibly. A spokesperson for the vaccine says if there was an anthrax release and we needed to administer anthrax vaccine, we have no experience with kids. It's never been in the arm of a kid. And this person, Lurie, stated, I started asking myself, is this the right way to respond in an emergency? So clearly they want to create emergency conditions so they can vaccinate more. At least that's my take on it, my opinion. You know, we now have a Fox News clip, if we could go to that now.
1.6 million in the military.
And many of them
have been tested and administered this vaccination.
And about 1 out of 200,000 serious effects, either neurological or autoimmune, immune system problems. So it's not without, like any vaccine has complications.
Yeah.
If it did come, you could give antibiotics. If you treat the people with antibiotics right away, they get better.
Is that Cipro?
Cipro or Cipro or a tetracycline. You have two types of antibiotics. What we should be working on is how do we get it to the people fast enough should there be an attack.
So there's a lot going on in that clip. You could see it for yourself, but he does point out there are dangers to the anthrax vaccine, though he kind of implies they're very low, something around 1 in 200,000. Now, there's a government GAO, that's the Government Accountability Office report from back in 2002 about the anthrax vaccine and its effects on military personnel who were given that vaccine. According to our survey, 37% of Guard and Reserve personnel who received 1 or more anthrax vaccine shots, of those, 84% reported side effects or adverse effects. 84%, a rate more than double of what was expected or cited in the product insert for the anthrax vaccine. Further, the GAO found that on the basis of our survey, each anthrax shot generated more than 4 reported events, and each respondent received close to 4 shots of anthrax vaccine. Thus, the average respondent had reported experiencing about 17 reactions or events thought to be attributable to the anthrax vaccine. That was in 2002, but everything's okay now because they say they now have a vaccine for anthrax combined with smallpox, and so that'll be good for you, I'm sure. Reuters reports how researchers have combined vaccines against smallpox and anthrax into one tidy vaccine that could protect against both the germs in a biological attack. And you've seen the other crazy reports where they have new vaccine guns that they think will put 17 or more vaccines into one blast that'll go right into your genes. And we've talked to some of the experts. They say it's because people won't come in for the vaccines, so they want to get them with everything they got when they got them. Just abhorrent. Now, there's other vaccine news, and that is over the new GlaxoSmithKline malaria vaccine. And, of course, the mainstream media says the results are very promising, and they cite the promising from a trial conducted by the vaccine developer, as well as some of our other friends in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the PATH Malaria Vaccine Initiative. And you've seen the clips where Bill Gates admits that they have to bring down the population and essentially ties it in with vaccination among other reasons, to bring down the carbon dioxide levels of the world. And he's over there bringing sympathy for vaccination in Africa, telling us how he's going to save the world. But what is the truth? Let's look at the reports. Mike Adams talks about how the media pushes the success of the experimental GSK, GlaxoSmithKline malaria vaccine, while ignoring the deadly side effects. That report's up on Natural News, but we have video now of Mike Adams talking about this new vaccine.
Here we have the Washington Post reporting that the anthrax vaccine's effectiveness in children stirs a debate. The White House is trying to decide whether they should inject children with this anthrax vaccine to determine if it works. And they think, well, this is a bioethics question. So they have a group of bioethicists, a bunch of advisors, who are trying to argue, yeah, we should use children as guinea pigs now because we might be able to save children in the future. If there is an anthrax attack in America, then we'll have a vaccine ready to inject into them. But the cost of doing that today is that we're going to have to probably sacrifice a few children today because, you know, the governments of the world, the big controllers are always into child sacrifice. That goes back throughout history. They know some children might die, some children might have permanent damage, neurological side effects, who knows what, but they are arguing that that's going to be worth it. Well, I say that's nonsense. That's complete nonsense. First of all, the children aren't going to encounter anthrax just at the playground at school. There would have to be a bioterrorism attack in order to expose children to anthrax. And secondly, what's this idea? Who's going to make the money from this anyway? Of course, the pharmaceutical industries. So this is just another example of trying to use innocent children, the bodies of American children, to make more money for the pharmaceutical industry. And they're trying to justify it by saying, oh, this is ethical. We could save more lives in the future by sacrificing a few now. Isn't that what every tyrant throughout history has always said? Isn't that the entire eugenics movement in a nutshell? Yeah, we can save the human race by sacrificing a few people today, making them infertile or just outright killing them, and then the human race will be better. That's what they say. Yeah, that's what the whole eugenicist movement is all about. But my question about this is, how do you know if the vaccine really worked? Suppose they inject these children with this anthrax vaccine, this experimental vaccine, the same one they injected into the soldiers in the Gulf War, many of which are suffering serious neurological side effects, Gulf War syndrome. And that's a big deal. That's real. You can't call all these soldiers liars. They are really experiencing these symptoms. But how do you know if this even works? Are they going to take the children, inject them with the vaccines, and then expose them to anthrax and find out how many live and how many die? I mean, or how would you know if it's even effective? But I have another theory. I think the measure of effectiveness is not how many lives it saves. I think the real measure of effectiveness is how many children it injures so that they can become future customers of the pharmaceutical industry. You see, this is the main point of vaccines today. It's not really to protect you from the flu. You can protect yourself from the flu with vitamin D. You can protect yourself with good nutrition, with sunlight, with basic immune boosting strategies that are very easy, very safe, very effective. The point of vaccines is to make you a victim. It is to trap you in the medical system so that you have kidney problems, so that you have liver disorders, so that you have a neurological problem that requires more treatment, or cancers that require more treatment down the road. That treatment pays big bucks. The drug industry knows that the more kids they can get vaccinated today, the more money they're going to make from those children when they grow up and become adults seeking health care, so-called health care. So, and we know this is true. The Institute of Medicine, even in its report, and by the way, it is a pro-vaccine organization, it admitted that the MMR vaccines contain live measles viruses, okay? It admitted that those vaccines cause measles in some children. It admitted that there are side effects. And again, this is an organization that usually covers for the vaccine industry. But now, to make things even crazier, check this out. Where is this? The media is pushing the success of the experimental GlaxoSmithKline malaria vaccine, but they're ignoring the deadly side effects. You see, yeah, they're saying this malaria vaccine is a big success now. It's all a spin story. It's all a hoax. It's not really a success because you've got the side effects. You see, yeah, okay, if the vaccine is effective, it might reduce malaria by some percentage, but what about the increase in the percentage of those people suffering neurological side effects? What about the kidney failure? What about the cancers? What about the adjuvants that are used in these vaccines that cause brain damage, that cause inflammation of the brain? What about the increases in the cases of Alzheimer's down the road? So you prevent maybe 5% of the malaria cases today, and then you have a 40% increase in Alzheimer's and cancer and diabetes. They call that a success. Of course it's a success to the pharmaceutical industry because, again, they make money off the long term when you stay sick. And vaccines are designed to keep you sick.
And there is Mike Adams talking about the general dangers of vaccines, including in regard to the new malaria vaccine and the anthrax vaccine we talked about before. Now, the same BBC report that tells you that the malaria vaccine has very promising results also points out that many of the side effects include meningitis and seizures. And they are conducting those trials in Africa where people are perhaps not as on guard. And in fact, here's another statistic. In 2006, polio was reported on the rise in Nigeria despite an almost universal rate of vaccination in that country. Where do you think that polio came from? Do your own research. Now, the BBC also reported that malaria deaths have fallen 20% worldwide in the last decade. So even though the deaths are on the decline, mad scientists like Bill Gates, mad billionaires with scientists in their pocket, rather, like Bill Gates, continue to push all kinds of crazy so-called solutions, including genetically modified mosquitoes to malaria, all unlimited money for these trials for malaria vaccines, and a whole lot more. The same Bill Gates who, with the Rockefeller Foundation, pushes genetically modified crops on Africa, forces them to take it, and has a whole body and initiative set up to push them. Now, in other vaccine news, they are now pushing the extremely controversial HPV vaccine.